the unmatched impact of England. Has any country left a deeper mark on the world than England? It's a question that still sparks heated debates among historians and everyday people alike. At its peak, England's reach stretched across continents, shaping the destinies of nations, spreading ideas, technology, and even conflict to every corner of the globe. But the real story of how England rose from a mysterious, fog-shrouded island to the heart of a global empire is far stranger and more dramatic than most people realize. Beneath the surface of England's familiar green hills and ancient cities lies a history filled with secrets, lost civilizations, and untold struggles for power. The story doesn't just begin with kings and castles, but with forgotten peoples whose names have vanished, leaving only cryptic traces behind. From the shadowy arrival of the first humans to the rise and fall of mighty empires, England's past is a tangled web of ambition, innovation, and survival. What if the real turning points in England's history weren't the famous battles or royal decrees, but the silent migrations, the buried treasures, and the mysterious monuments that still puzzle experts today? As we dig into the origins of England, we'll uncover not just the facts, but the controversies, the rumors, and the lingering mysteries that continue to shape the nation's identity. And, as you'll see, the story of England's rise is anything but straightforward, because every chapter hides a new surprise, and every answer leads to even more questions. But to truly understand how England became so powerful, we have to start at the very beginning, long before the first written word, when the land itself was still wild and untamed, and the first settlers arrived with nothing but hope, courage, and secrets that would echo through the ages. Lost worlds. The first English settlers, long before the rise of kings or the clash of empires, England was a land of shadows and secrets. The first modern humans are believed to have arrived nearly 30,000 years ago, crossing a now-vanished land bridge, known as Doggerland, a stretch of fertile ground that once connected Britain to mainland Europe. Today, that ancient highway lies hidden beneath the cold waters of the North Sea, but its legacy still lingers in the DNA of modern English people. Recent genetic studies have revealed direct links between these early settlers and remains that are at least 9,000 years old, suggesting that the roots of England's people run far deeper than most realize. But the story of these first arrivals is shrouded in mystery. Before them, Neanderthals and other ancient humans had already called this land home, only to disappear as the newcomers spread across the island. Did they simply die out, or was there a more dramatic encounter, one lost to time and legend? All that remains of these earliest inhabitants are scattered stone tools, haunting cave drawings, and burial sites that hint at a world we can barely imagine. As the ice melted and sea levels rose, Doggerland was swallowed by the waves, cutting Britain off from the rest of Europe. Yet, the flow of people never truly stopped. New waves of settlers arrived by boat, bringing with them the seeds of agriculture, new languages, and the first hints of social order. These pioneers built simple homes, mined flint for tools, and left behind burial mounds filled with treasure sites, evidence of their beliefs and their struggles. What secrets did these ancient people carry with them, and how much of their story is still waiting to be uncovered beneath the fields and forests of modern England? The answers remain elusive, but one thing is certain: the lost worlds of England's first settlers laid the foundation for everything that would follow. And as we move forward, the mysteries only deepen, buried treasures and ancient power. As the centuries passed, the people of ancient England began to leave their mark on the land in ways that still spark curiosity today. One of the most striking legacies of these early communities is the network of barrows, massive burial mounds dug deep into the earth, some still visible across the countryside. These weren't just simple graves. Inside, archaeologists have uncovered treasures, flint tools, pottery, and even jewelry, all buried alongside the dead. Such finds suggest a belief in an afterlife, but they also hint at something more: a society where status and power were already taking root. Only a select few were honored with these elaborate burials, raising questions about who truly held influence in these ancient tribes. Around 3000 BC, a new group arrived on England's shores, bringing with them a wave of change. Known as the Beaker People, named for their distinctive pottery, they didn't just blend in. According to some theories, they may have supplanted or even replaced many of the earlier inhabitants. Was this a peaceful migration, or did it involve conflict and conquest? The evidence is still debated, but the sudden shift in burial styles and artifacts points to a dramatic transformation in society. The Beaker people introduced new technologies, including metalworking, and their arrival marked the beginning of larger, more organized settlements. These early communities weren't just isolated villages, they were connected by trade, shared rituals, and perhaps even rivalries. The treasures found in burial mounds, copper knives, gold ornaments, and imported goods suggest a network that stretched far beyond England's borders. Some researchers speculate that these items were more than just symbols of wealth. They may have been used to cement alliances or display dominance over neighboring groups. But for all the artifacts and clues left behind, much about these ancient people remains a mystery. Who were the leaders buried with such riches? What stories did their treasures tell? And what happened to those who came before them, whose traditions were suddenly swept away? The answers are buried deep in the earth, waiting for the next discovery to shed light on England's earliest power struggles. And as new groups arrived, the stage was set for even greater mysteries, none more famous than the enigma of Stonehenge. Stonehenge, England's ancient enigma rising from the windswept plains of Wiltshire. Stonehenge stands as one of the world's most iconic and baffling monuments. Its massive stones, some weighing as much as 25 tons, were dragged from as far away as South Wales, over 150 miles from where they now rest. But why would ancient people go to such extraordinary lengths to build this mysterious circle? Theories abound, but the truth remains elusive, fueling endless speculation and debate. Some believe Stonehenge was a sacred ritual site, a place where ancient priests communed with the gods or marked the changing of the seasons. Others argue it served as a public gathering place, a kind of prehistoric forum where communities came together to settle disputes or celebrate important events. There's even evidence suggesting it may have functioned as a vast calendar, perfectly aligned with the solstices, allowing its builders to track the passage of time with astonishing precision. Yet, despite decades of research, no single explanation has ever satisfied everyone. What's even more intriguing is the evidence of bustling human activity all around Stonehenge. Archaeologists have uncovered traces of ancient villages, suggesting that people traveled from far and wide to visit this sacred site. The discovery of the grave known as the Amesbury Archer, buried nearby with a wealth of artifacts, copper knives, gold jewelry, and imported goods has only deepened the mystery. Was he a powerful chieftain, a revered priest, or perhaps a wealthy pilgrim drawn to Stonehenge's magnetic pull? No one can say for sure, but his burial hints at a society with complex beliefs and far-reaching connections. Stonehenge's construction itself is a testament to the organization and ambition of early English society. Moving and raising those stones would have required not just brute strength, but careful planning, reliable food supplies, and leaders capable of commanding large groups of workers. The monument's very existence suggests a civilization far more advanced than many once believed, one with the resources and authority to shape the landscape on a grand scale. Even today, Stonehenge refuses to give up all its secrets. Was it a temple, a tomb, or something else entirely? Each new discovery seems to raise more questions than it answers, keeping the legend alive. And as we move forward in England's story, the mysteries only multiply, with new peoples and new powers waiting just beyond the horizon. Bronze Age warriors and global trade. As the Bronze Age dawned, England transformed into a land of warriors, traders, and sacred rituals. The evidence is scattered across the countryside: hilltop settlements fortified with wooden walls, weapons buried with the fallen, and rivers filled with mysterious offerings. Life was anything but peaceful. Warfare was a constant threat, and the need for defense shaped every aspect of society. The largest communities rose on high ground, their walls a silent warning to rivals and invaders alike. But these ancient people were more than just fighters. They were deeply spiritual, believing the land itself was alive with unseen forces. Rivers, in particular, held a special place in their world. Archaeologists have found countless artifacts, swords, shields, and jewelry deliberately thrown into the water, likely as gifts to the gods. What drove these people to make such costly sacrifices? Some say it was fear, others devotion, but the truth remains hidden beneath centuries of silt and legend. Despite their isolation on the edge of Europe, the people of Bronze Age England were far from cut off. In fact, they were part of a vast network of trade that stretched from the Baltic to the Mediterranean, and even as far as Egypt. The key to their wealth and influence was tin, a rare and valuable metal. Found in abundance in the hills of Cornwall and Devon, combined with copper, it created bronze, the metal that defined an era. English tin was so prized that it found its way into the hands of Egyptian pharaohs and Greek warriors, fueling the rise of powerful armies and distant empires. This trade brought not only wealth but new ideas and technologies. Imported beads, furs, and metals have been uncovered in burial sites, proof that England's ancient inhabitants were connected to a much larger world. Yet, for all their connections, they remained fiercely independent, their society ruled by a native elite, who displayed their power through lavish treasures and elaborate ceremonies. Still, questions linger. How did these early traders navigate such dangerous journeys? What secrets did they bring back from distant lands? And how did the constant threat of war shape the lives of ordinary people? The answers are scattered among the ruins, waiting to be pieced together. But one thing is clear: the Bronze Age set the stage for even greater upheaval, as new peoples and new technologies prepared to sweep across the land, forever changing the course of England's history. The Celtic Druids and division. Everything changed when the Celts arrived. Around the 7th century BC, a new wave of people swept into England from the continent, bringing with them iron weapons, new languages, and a culture that would leave a permanent mark on the island. The Celts weren't just another group of settlers. They were organized, aggressive, and technologically advanced. Their iron swords and tools were far superior to the old bronze, giving them a decisive edge in both farming and warfare. With these new tools, the Celts built larger settlements, cleared more land, and quickly established themselves as the new ruling class. The landscape of England began to transform. The Celts constructed massive hill forts, expanding on earlier designs but on a much grander scale. These fortified strongholds, like the legendary Maiden Castle in Dorset, became centers of power where local rulers commanded loyalty from surrounding tribes. Life inside these forts was a world apart, protected, organized, and governed by a strict social hierarchy. The Celts relegated the original Britons to second-class status, their traditions and influence fading as the newcomers took control. But the Celts were more than just warriors. Their society was deeply spiritual, guided by a powerful priestly class known as the Druids. These mysterious figures held immense sway, acting as judges, teachers, and keepers of sacred knowledge. Celtic religion was rooted in the land itself, with every river, hill, and forest believed to be alive with spirits. The Druids performed elaborate rituals, some of which remain shrouded in secrecy and speculation to this day. Stories of human sacrifice and mystical ceremonies have fueled centuries of debate, but the true nature of Druidic power remains one of history's great enigmas. Celtic art also flourished during this era, marked by intricate patterns and flowing curves that are still recognizable in British design today. Their influence was so profound that even outsiders took notice. In 325 BC, the Greek explorer Pytheas landed on Britain's shores, becoming the first recorded foreign visitor. He described a land ruled by many independent kings and princes, each presiding over their own territories and people. His accounts, though filtered through later writers, offer a rare glimpse into a society both advanced and fiercely divided. Yet, for all their achievements, the Celts never truly united England. The island was a patchwork of rival kingdoms, each vying for dominance. As the Iron Age progressed, the old hill forts began to fade, replaced by more powerful kingdoms that could offer real security. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered, and the fate of the original Britons remained uncertain. Were they absorbed, driven out, or simply forgotten? The truth is still debated. But one thing is clear: the arrival of the Celts set the stage for the next great upheaval, a clash with a power even greater than their own. As the shadow of Rome began to fall across the land, Rome arrives. Betrayal and rebellion. The Celts may have ruled England, but their grip was about to be tested by a force unlike any they had ever faced. In 55 BC, the Roman general Julius Caesar landed on British shores, drawn by tales of wealth, metal, and the promise of glory. The Romans saw Britain as a wild frontier, rich in resources and ripe for conquest. But their first encounters were anything but easy. The native Britons, with their chariots and fierce warriors, put up a stubborn resistance. Yet, compared to the disciplined Roman legions, their tactics seemed chaotic and outdated. Caesar's initial campaign was cut short by rebellion back in Gaul, but he returned the following year, pushing deeper into the island and forcing local kings to submit, at least for a time. For nearly a century after Caesar's expeditions, Rome's interest in Britain cooled. The island remained a land of rumors and distant trade. its tribes left to their own rivalries. But everything changed in 43 AD, when Emperor Claudius, eager for a military triumph, ordered a full-scale invasion. Roman legions landed in Kent and swept through the countryside with brutal efficiency. Some local rulers saw the writing on the wall and pledged loyalty to Rome, but others, like the proud chieftain Caratacus, chose to fight. After a series of desperate battles, Caratacus was betrayed and handed over to the Romans, marking the symbolic end of independent Celtic rule. But Roman control was far from secure. In 61 AD, a spark of rebellion ignited that would shake the empire to its core. Prasutagus, king of the Iceni tribe, died, and the Romans ignored his will, seizing his lands and brutalizing his family. His widow Boudica refused to accept this humiliation. She rallied neighboring tribes, channeling their anger over Roman taxes and oppression into a full-scale revolt. Boudica's forces stormed Colchester, slaughtered Roman settlers, and burned London to the ground. Ancient sources claim that as many as 80,000 people were killed in the chaos. Though the real number is still debated, the rebellion reached its climax when Boudica's massive army faced the Roman legions in a final, desperate battle. Despite being outnumbered, the Romans held their ground, and the Celtic forces were trapped and decimated. Boudica herself vanished from history. Some say she died of illness, others whisper of poison or escape. Her uprising was crushed, but her legend endured, a symbol of resistance against impossible odds. The arrival of Rome brought conquest, betrayal, and rebellion, forever altering the fate of England. But as the dust settled, a new era began, one where Roman power would reshape every aspect of life, from the cities to the countryside, and leave a legacy that still echoes today. Roman Britain, oppression, and lasting change. With the defeat of Boudica's rebellion, Roman rule tightened its grip on England, ushering in an era of dramatic transformation. The Romans didn't just conquer the land, they reshaped it, introducing new ways of living, building, and ruling that would leave a permanent mark. Across the countryside, Roman towns sprang up, their stone buildings and straight roads a stark contrast to the old Celtic settlements. Cities like London, Colchester, and York became centers of power, trade, and culture, bustling with markets, bathhouses, and forums where the new elite gathered to make decisions that would affect the entire province. But this new luxury came at a cost. For the majority of people, life under Roman rule was a double-edged sword. Taxes were heavy, and the demands of the empire were relentless. Farmers in rural villages found themselves working not just for their own survival, but to fill the coffers of distant rulers. The Romans extracted grain, livestock, and precious metals, fueling their own ambitions while leaving many Britons struggling to keep up. Some adapted by shifting to sheep farming, sparking a wool industry that would become a cornerstone of England's economy for centuries. Others found opportunity in the booming trade of lead and tin, as England's mines supplied materials for everything from Roman pipes to luxury goods. Yet, not everyone shared in the prosperity. The grand villas and lavish estates that dotted the landscape were reserved for the wealthy, often Roman officials or local aristocrats who had embraced the new order. These estates boasted heated floors, fine art, and sprawling lands worked by tenants or even slaves. Meanwhile, most Britons continued to live in modest homes, their lives shaped by the rhythms of the land and the demands of their Roman overlords. Roman influence extended far beyond economics. The empire brought new laws, customs, and even fashions, introducing literacy, public baths, and a taste for imported delicacies. The construction of Hadrian's Wall in the north marked not just a physical boundary, but a cultural divide separating Roman Britain from the untamed lands beyond. The wall itself became a symbol of Roman power and engineering, manned by thousands of soldiers and stretching across the wild border. Despite the hardships, Roman Britain was a place of remarkable diversity and change. People from across the empire, soldiers, merchants, and settlers brought their own traditions, blending them with local customs to create a unique Romano-British culture. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered, and the question remained, could this new order truly last, or was it only a matter of time before the old ways resurfaced? As the centuries passed, the answer would become clear. As the empire's grip began to falter and the seeds of chaos were sown, collapse and chaos, the fall of Roman rule. For nearly 3 centuries, Roman Britain enjoyed a level of peace and stability unknown in its earlier history. Roads crisscrossed the land, cities thrived, and trade flourished. But beneath the surface calm, cracks were beginning to show. The The mighty Roman Empire itself was starting to unravel, beset by internal strife, economic troubles, and relentless attacks from outside its borders. Britain, once a prized province, soon found itself on the edge of chaos. The warning signs came early. By the 3rd century, raiders from across the North Sea, Saxons, Picts, and Scots began to test the defenses of Roman Britain. The infamous Great Barbarian Conspiracy of 367 AD saw these groups launch a coordinated assault, overwhelming Hadrian's Wall and plunging the province into turmoil. Although Roman forces managed to restore order, the damage was done. The sense of security that had defined Roman Britain was shattered, and the empire's grip on the island grew weaker with each passing year. As Rome's troubles mounted, Britain became a pawn in the empire's desperate power struggles. Ambitious generals declared themselves emperor, siphoning away troops to fight battles on the continent. In 383, Magnus Maximus led his legions out of Britain, never to return. The final blow came in 409. When the last Roman officials and soldiers quietly slipped away, leaving the province to fend for itself. There was no dramatic battle, no heroic last stand, just a slow, silent withdrawal that left cities and forts abandoned to the elements. The aftermath was a time of uncertainty and fear. The grand Roman towns, once bustling with life, began to crumble. Roads fell into disrepair, and the countryside was left to the mercy of new invaders. The Romano-British elite, who had thrived under Roman rule, struggled to maintain order as their world collapsed around them. For the rural majority, the end of Rome meant little more than the loss of taxes and the return of old ways. But for the cities, it was the end of an era. Yet, even as Roman Britain faded into history, its legacy endured. The ruins of villas and roads, the outlines of ancient cities, and the spread of Christianity all survived the chaos, shaping the land for generations to come. But the peace and unity of the Roman days were gone, replaced by a new age of uncertainty. As waves of invaders prepared to descend on the island, England stood on the brink of transformation, its future uncertain, its past a fading memory, and its story far from over. England's forgotten origins. As the dust settled on the ruins of Roman Britain, a new chapter was about to begin, one that would see the land transformed again and again by waves of invaders, settlers, and dreamers. Yet, even as new powers rose and fell, the echoes of England's ancient past continued to shape its destiny in ways both seen and unseen. The roads built by Roman engineers, the mysterious barrows of the first settlers, and the silent stones of Stonehenge all remained as silent witnesses to a history that refused to be forgotten. But for all the grand monuments and legendary figures, so much of England's early story remains hidden beneath the surface. The fields and forests of modern England still conceal secrets, buried treasures, lost villages, and the bones of those who lived and died in a world we can barely imagine. Every new archaeological discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, but also raises new questions. Who were the true founders of England? How much of their culture, language, and beliefs survived the storms of conquest and change? And what mysteries still lie waiting to be uncovered just beneath our feet? Historians and scientists continue to debate the real impact of those first settlers, the Beaker People, the Celts, and the Romans. Some argue that the roots of English identity stretch back thousands of years, woven from countless migrations and cultural exchanges. Others suggest that the real turning points came later, with the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings, and the Normans. But one thing is certain: the story of England is not a simple tale of kings and battles, but a complex tapestry of survival, adaptation, and reinvention. Even today, the legacy of these forgotten origins can be felt in the language, traditions, and landscape of England. Place names echo ancient tongues, customs hint at rituals long since lost, and the very shape of the countryside bears the marks of those who came before. The past is never truly gone, it lingers in the shadows, waiting to be rediscovered. So, as we look back on the rise and fall of ancient England, we're left with a final, thought-provoking question. How much of our world is still shaped by the choices, struggles, and dreams of people whose names have vanished from history? The answers may never be complete, but the search for them ensures that England's forgotten origins will continue to inspire curiosity, debate, and wonder for generations to come.